It's like winning the lotto every year for years. That's the jaundiced view of some executive salaries from some shareholders. And as Qantas splits its full-service airline in two, it's appointed a chief executive for both airlines, complete with their CEO salaries. Andrew Robertson reports on soaring pay packets.
Qantas might be cutting staff to cut its wage bill, but in the executive suite, salaries are flying as high as its planes. The problem for shareholders is their returns on their investment are stuck on the tarmac.
The company is struggling. It'll no doubt make a loss this year. And the reality is the stock price has gone from $6 to $1.40, so it's a terrible situation.
Made worse for shareholders by the fact that Qantas hasn't paid a dividend for 2 years. Fund manager Roger Montgomery has been studying Qantas's annual reports for the last decade. He says Qantas's directors and senior management have rewarded themselves handsomely while shareholders have gone backwards. A decade ago, Qantas's net profit was more than $400 million. Last year, it was $250 million, and Roger Montgomery agrees with Vaz Kolesnikov that Qantas will make a loss this year. Over that same 10-year period, the pay of directors and the most senior executives has gone from $7 million to $17 million, a rise of 250%.
This is a business that employs more capital. It is incredibly capital intensive and it earns less money, and yet senior ranks within that company are being paid more for what is arguably mediocre performance.
At the heart of the perceived overpayment of senior executives is the bonus culture, which company chairmen say is essential to, in their jargon, incentivise their top people. But for the Shareholders Association, those huge bonuses have the opposite effect because senior executives don't really need to have a job.
What could possibly happen to an executive if he does then suddenly lose his job, like his workers at Qantas, for example, in Melbourne have lost their jobs? If you've got a pool of $5+ million or $8 million or even $3 million, winning a lotto every year for 5 years.
While many in the investment community believe executive pay packets are out of control, in the academic world there are different points of view. For some who study remuneration closely, Australia's publicly listed companies are not out of step with the rest of the world. One of those is Associate Professor Julie Walker at the University of Queensland, who's not convinced Qantas is overpaying.
The performance targets set for its management would be set in the context of our current economic times. So there may well be internal benchmarks such as budgeted profit or budgeted underlying profit, or loss in this case.
However, Professor Walker believes Qantas should come clean with shareholders about executive pay levels. She also says Qantas and many other companies are not being honest with shareholders about bonuses that are paid every year, regardless of performance.
If the company pays it every single year, irrespective of performance, it's not a bonus. It's not performance-based. It's a fixed payment that's made every year, and so it should be part of fixed salary.
Making that admission, though, for many public companies would pour fuel on the fire of the heated salary debate.